Hello and welcome to another episode of My Story. I will try to combine the history of a medieval farm that became a palatial estate and then a university with the history of the Duchy and Kingdom of Württemberg in Germany. Furthermore, with the Margraviate of Baden, and then all that with two astounding persons from Estonia and Georgia. And all that, if you will, is part of our family history, covering more than 900 years. Part 1. There was a tiny farmhouse in the forest and upon the hills near Stuttgart, Germany. The name Stuttgart means horse farm, and up on the hill they probably grew feed for the horses. I don't know. In the year 1100, a knight called Egilolf von Hohenach made a donation to a monastery. A little later, Hohenach was renamed Hohenheim. Maybe there is a genetic relation between Egilolf and the next documented person. In 1278, Conrad von Hohenheim bore the byname Bombast, meaning grandiose or huge. Conrad held his estate in lien of the Count of Württemberg. Conrad's descendant, George Bombast von Hohenheim, accompanied his superior on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where he was raised as a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre in 1468. This George had a son William, and William in turn a son Theophrastus. Probably every student of medicine knows him by the name of Paracelsus. We discovered this family among our ancestors. Maybe the same Jerusalem knight George, or another relative, had a daughter Anna, who was married to a Wolf von Rosenfeld, a nobleman of the area. They in turn had a daughter Ursula. More on her shortly. In the adjoining region lived Ernest Margrave of Baden, who had married Elizabeth of Brandenburg, a branch of the Hohenzollern family. Ernest and Elizabeth had quite a number of boys and girls when Elizabeth died in 1518. Margrave Ernest took the beautiful Ursula as a second wife. Ursula gave her husband two girls and one boy, Charles. All three children survived and married. Nobody would have expected that the male lines of Ernest's first marriage to Elizabeth would soon become extinct, and Charles to become the successor. As it turns out, all Margraves of Baden until today are descendants of Anna Bombast von Hohenheim, Ursula, and Charles.
Des amants désunis. Oh, je voudrais tant que tu te souviennes
After Ursula died in 1538, Margrave Ernest married as his third wife a relative of hers, maybe her niece, also called Anna Bombast von Hohenheim, but they had no children together.
Et le soleil, plus brûlant qu'aujourd'hui. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Tu vois, je n'ai pas oublié que les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Les souvenirs et les regrets aussi. Et le vent du nord les emporte dans la nuit froide de l'oubli.
With the death of her brother George in 1566, the Bombast von Hohenheim family became extinct in the male line.
La chanson que tu me chantais, c'est une chanson qui nous ressemble, toi qui m'aimais, moi qui
Their
t'aimais.
genes, as well as their legacy, continue on until the present times. As I said, Ernest and Ursula had Charles, and his granddaughter married a Count of Waldeck. And their granddaughter Sophie, in turn, married Duke Ernst. From them, the line continued until the present day to us.
Tout doucement, sans faire de bruit, et la mer efface sur le sable les pas des amants désunis.
Part 2. So, what about this place called Hohenheim? 900 years ago, it was just a farmstead, maybe with a fortification around it. The Bombast von Hohenheim owned it until 1566, and then other lienholders took over. In 1768, though, the property fell back to the Duke's family. Now, there was a Duke Karl Eugene.
Oh, je voudrais tant que tu te souviennes des jours heureux où nous étions amis. En ce temps-là, la vie était plus belle et le soleil plus brûlant qu'aujourd'hui. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Tu vois, je n'ai pas oublié que les feuilles mortes se ramassent à la pelle. Les souvenirs et les regrets aussi. Et le vent du nord
The Duke needed a little hideaway. So he decided to tear down the old manor and build a lover's castle just for her. Carl Eugene later married her, so don't think too badly of them.
la chanson que tu me chantais.
And so the dynasty of the Dukes of Württemberg continued, and eventually they became kings. King William of Württemberg was married to Katarina Romanova. They decided to found an agricultural institute. In America, we would call it an A&M college. Incidentally, the east wing of the palace became a high school named in honor of Paracelsus. So this was the 900-year history of the farm that turned into a beautiful palace, then a university and public park with many experimental fields and plants. The third part of my story for today begins in Estonia, which was part of the Russian Empire then. The Barons von Wrangell were a German Baltic family of great fame and scientific education. A daughter of that family, Margaret, had previously met a good-looking Georgian prince named Vladimir Andronikashvili, or in Russian, Andronikov. The young Baroness von Wrangell was allowed to pursue a higher education and, as was usual for Russian imperial nobility, to study abroad. Margaret attended the leading University of Württemberg and received her PhD with a summa cum laude in 1909. She submitted a dissertation that was to change the world of agricultural production around the world. And among an impressive list of famous people, she also worked with Marie Curie. When Margaret went back to her native Russia, she was imprisoned by the communists. Luckily, she escaped and returned to Germany. In 1920, Baroness Margaret von Wrangell took the position of the head of the department of the newly founded Institute of Plant Ecology at the University of Hohenheim. The excellence of her research and teaching soon made her the first female professor in German history. Of course, she had many rivals who opposed her scientific work, in part because they did not understand her, and in part because she was a woman. In 1928, the Baroness married Prince Vladimir Andronikov, her childhood friend from Georgia. Both of their home countries, Estonia and Georgia, had enjoyed a brief period of independence but were quickly reabsorbed by communist Russia. Both of them were refugees, lived in exile, were homesick, and very much in love with each other. After Margaret's death, Prince Vladimir wrote a book about his astounding wife. I greatly recommend the book, which describes her struggle as a woman in the male-dominated field of science and professorial teaching, but also her ability to survive the political fate of her homeland Estonia and, of course, her career in Germany. The German people never forgot their first female professor and her contribution to science. Many years after her death, in 1992, the German government established the Margaret von Wrangell Foundation, which promotes the cooperation between university research and companies. Furthermore, in 1997, another branch of the German government designed a special program for women named in honor of Margaret von Wrangell to support highly qualified female scientists in their writing of doctoral dissertations. And just recently, a street in Stuttgart was named in her honor, Wrangelstraße. Part 4. I showed you before that the family of Bombast von Hohenheim is a part of my ancestry through the dynasties of Württemberg, Baden, and Waldeck. We tried to establish a link between the University of Hohenheim and an agricultural college in Kakheti in Georgia. Another Georgian by name of Sarajishvili had also studied in Germany and learned the art of making cognac and vodka. With his profits, he had acquired much land in Kakheti, which he donated to his daughter Mariam. The communist government expropriated all these lands and later built an agricultural college on the property. After the Rose Revolution, we thought it logical to create hundreds of jobs together with the legal heirs of Sarajishvili, but the corruption of certain government members hindered us to implement this plan. Nevertheless, we see a significant historic connection between Georgia, Estonia, Hohenheim, and our families. And who knows? Our daughter Mariam, a descendant of both Bombast von Hohenheim and Andronikashvili, a relative of the aristocracy of Württemberg, Baden, Sarajishvili, and Margaret von Wrangell, may one day reunite something that history had already wrought together.